Why would a submissive blame the dominant, unnecessarily blame the dominant to get that connection, to get that validation, to get that investment? I grew up in a shaming environment. Shaming and blaming me is how my caretakers taught me to be better. If I can just convince you of how you've got it all wrong, the dominant, you'll realize I'm right and you'll want to change yourself. And if you could just change, I'll be okay and you'll be okay and our relationship will be okay and everything will be better and I won't have to feel alone or out of control of my safety. That's a very insecure, triggered AP way of looking at it. And that's why they might blame the dominant unnecessarily. Why would a submissive protest behaviors in a DS dynamic? I'm trying so hard to be heard and responded to. If I can just get you to hear me, everything will be okay. I grew up in a home where I never knew if my emotional pain would be responded to or validated. This made me feel so desperate and alone, and sometimes all I know how to do is get bigger to be heard. So dominants, you might be running into this with a submissive who they get explosive or fussy with you or push back when they shouldn't because of this, okay? Next one, demanding. It's like it needs attention, like bratting. And that's why I say bratting could be on either side of the spectrum. It could be more of a trauma response where our needs aren't getting met, but we don't know how to communicate our needs. Or it could be, hey, I feel so safe to feel this expressive and open. So it really just depends on the dynamic and the attachment styles going on in both dominant and submissive. But getting back to the question, why might a submissive get demanding with a dominant? Because again, the question is, how would a dominant dominate a submissive with abandonment issues? These are some of the issues, or abandonment trauma, excuse me. These are some of the issues that might arise in that situation. A demanding submissive. It's really hard for me to trust that I'm lovable and won't be abandoned. The way I try to reassure myself is to get you to prove to me that you love me and won't go away. I'm not trying to be demanding. It's just that in my mind, if you do things the way I want, it means that you love me. And all I want is to feel safe and loved. But since my lack of trust gets in the way of allowing love in, I can never get the reassurance I'm looking for. But I keep demanding anyway because that feels like my only hope. Okay. Next strategy, the submissive could also start raising the bar with you dominants, where you dominants feel like I can never be dominant enough. I can never play enough. I can never be caring enough. I can never be enough. They keep raising the bar. I keep raising the bar for the same reason I make demands. I'm looking for the ultimate proof that you love me and won't abandon me. The problem is I don't trust it when I get it. Since I don't trust it, I have to create another test for you as my dominant. Raise that bar just a little bit higher. Once you meet that bar, then I'll feel secure. I have no idea I'm doing this because it's my subconscious attempt to get my needs met. Why would a submissive word vomit, word salad, circular conversations, excessive communication? I'm not used to being heard and responded to. I had caregivers who weren't consistently available, and a lot of the time I felt desperate to be heard and validated. Since I have a core belief that my voice doesn't matter, and since sometimes you really aren't able to hear me because of your own blocks, I just keep repeating the same words over and over and just keep talking lots and lots of words, trying so hard just to be heard. While pushing them away. Exactly. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Why might a submissive filter for the negative? So dominants, you might be experiencing this where, they say on one hand, everything's going good, but then you get all these critical messages or critical feedback, and the submissive, it seems like they're fixating on everything going wrong in a scene or not working in the dynamic, things like that. Why might a insecurely attached submissive do that? Well, if I'm able to see the negative, I won't get surprised and I'll be able to stay in control of the situation. I need to stay very aware of any sign that you're mad, you don't love me, or will abandon or betray me because I always have to be on alert. It's never safe to rest and just enjoy the good stuff. Why would I do that? In my experience, the good stuff never lasts long. It always goes away. My brain has adapted to barely even noticing the good. And if I do notice it, it's not long before I find something scary to focus on and change. Why would a submissive get overly critical with a dominant? If I can just get you to see that you're doing something wrong, dominant, that you're not being dominant enough, we'll be okay. I've made an art out of figuring out how to do things the right way in order to stay in control, and I had to do so from a young age. Of course, I'm rigid about my ideas because if we don't do things my way, I'm going to be anxious about the bad things which might happen. And this is exactly why I say if you have a controlling submissive, sub training is going to be like pulling teeth because of this. This is the root of a controlling submissive, because think about it. If submission is, I want to release, I want to let go, right? I want the bliss of the release, then why are we holding on to control? So we have a conscious desire that's being mitigated or pushed aside by a subconscious response. And so that's why I'm saying if you have a controlling submissive, you need to get to the root of that, and you need to get to the root of that fast. Okay? Get to that fast. So, I have a rigid way of doing things. I'm not trying to put you down, dominant. This is just how I say safe. If you don't see it my way, it's important for me to show you why you and your way are wrong. That's how we say safe. Don't you understand? These are all abandonment wounds. Why might the submissive threaten, make threats? My greatest fear is of abandonment. So when I really want to show you, dominant, how hurt I am, and I can't get you to hear me any other way, I'm going to threaten to do to you what is my own worst fear. I'm going to threaten to leave. Also, when I don't feel heard, responded to, and validated, and when I feel betrayed, it is so painful that all I want to do is run away. The problem is I'm so afraid of abandonment that I can't even do that very well, but I can threaten it. And if I can scare you, hopefully you'll hear me and somehow everything will be okay. So here's the thing. We're going through this, and these hurt your soul, these hurt your soul, these hurt your soul, okay? Let's look at the result of this. Because you're asking, the question was, how do you dominate a submissive like this? How do you manage this? How do you dominate a submissive like this? And yes, it's very heartbreaking that these are the thoughts and the beliefs and the experiences, absolutely. But we also must empathize with the dominant here, who is trying to dominate this type of submissive. Here's often the aftermath. Blaming and criticizing leaves the dominant partner feeling attacked, unheard, and disrespected, all of which fuel the negative cycle. Demanding and raising the bar leave their dominant partner feeling exhausted, hopeless, and demoralized. Not how you want your dominant to feel. Protesting, getting emotionally bigger, getting louder, and using lots of words overwhelms the dominant partner and the situation. These behaviors can leave the dominant partner feeling helpless, controlled, and trapped. Filtering for the negative leaves the dominant partner feeling unappreciated, demoralized, and wondering, will I ever be able to get it right? When the anxious partner has one foot out the door, the dominant partner may at first feel threatened, but will eventually begin to view the behavior as an empty threat, which will leave the anxious partner, the submissive, feeling more unheard. First and foremost, the point that I would volley to this question, Mama, what would be the recommendations for a dominant with this kind of submissive? Boundaries. Really, really like resolute boundaries. Resolute boundaries. Because as we read, these are escalating behaviors, raising the bar, demanding, all of these things, they're escalating behaviors. And so dominant who is with this type of submissive, you will be drained if you do not have boundaries, and you will be drained fast, because really all of what we read is not healthy connection. It's testing to feel safe. It's just test after test after test after test. Now we can empathize with why the tests are happening, but the reality is those tests lead to very destructive, self-fulfilling prophecies, as you were saying. Crush it. Okay, I'm done. Hey, so glad you're here, Amp Daddy. So, with that being said, boundaries are going to save you, dominant. You need to get very, very resolute on when you start feeling drained, start setting some boundaries. You don't wait until you hit the wall. Don't wait until you are so broken down and questioning yourself and feeling completely powerless and like you have no authority because of what's been happening in your dynamic. Don't wait until that point. The second you start feeling discouraged and like you don't want to play with your submissive, something's going on. The second you feel anxious or overwhelmed by the thought of having to plan a scene with that submissive, something's off. The second you start feeling like, I can't come up with any creative thoughts for scene planning anymore or play anymore, and this whole thing has just lost its appeal, red flag, something's going on. So really lots of awareness, dominant, because that submissive who's constantly testing you because they're so terrified of abandonment is going to be one test after another. So it's your responsibility to set those boundaries, to have that awareness and to set those boundaries, because that is going to force some level of healing from this submissive as well. When you set a boundary, you go, hey, we're good, everything's okay, but I just need some space and some time. You communicated and you said, hey, I just need some space and some time. We'll reconnect next week. That is the opportunity for that submissive to grow the fuck up and to heal or not. So you have the opportunity to be a very positive mirror and a very positive springboard for your submissive to move into more secure territory. So I'm starting with that first and foremost, awareness, personal awareness, and boundaries. Huge, huge, huge.